Hello and welcome to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz, and oh my goodness, ladies and gentlemen, tonight we're going to break down the Ravens' 47-42 victory over the Browns, the front runner for Game of the Year at this point, and also go over some key waiver wire claims for those of you that are lucky enough to still be alive in the fantasy football playoffs. Week 15 already here, absolutely crazy, and it did take us, till the end of Week 14 to get, again, in my mind, the best game of the year at this point. So as I said, Ravens 47, Browns 42. If you had a Browns plus 3.5 ticket, I am so sorry for your loss right now, because this was a 3-point game thanks to a freaking rocket from Justin Tucker to win at the end, I believe 55 yards. And then in the last play of the game, the Browns had an unfortunate safety to provide one of the worst bad beats you will ever see out there. But going through just the game from just more macro level, I mean, it was just one rushing touchdown after another in the first half, and no one could build a big lead. And we went in at 21-14 with the Ravens having the advantage. Lamar Jackson, 2 first half rushing touchdowns. They just had a problem getting him to the ground all night long. And, we saw the usual design stuff, but it was really just Lamar being an athlete on a lot of those scrambles. And, we saw that impact the way that the Browns were able to play coverage as well. So one of those things with running quarterbacks where, they don't really face the same sort of just consistent, I guess, just 11 defenders focusing on the pass because they got to worry about the run. That's not a detriment to the quarterback. That's just an added advantage of what they bring to the table because they are that good on the ground. But as I said, Lamar, 2 first half rushing touchdowns. Nick Chubb also had 2 first half rushing scores. Kareem Hunt kind of took over in the second half. It seemed like it might be getting away for a little bit. Ravens were able to score and get up by 2 touchdowns in the third quarter. But then Lamar Jackson had to go to the locker room with cramps. A whole lot of people on Twitter were wondering if it was more of a poop issue. Paul Pierce, throwback to the wheelchair game and all that. Whatever it was, it did take Lamar Jackson out of the game, and the Browns took the chance to roar right back into it. So down 34-20 going into the fourth quarter. Baker took them down, converted 2 fourth downs, the second of which was a nice touchdown pass, 21 yards to Rashard Higgins after Marcus Peters just fell down. And the next drive, Baker caps it off with a touchdown run on his own. So really seemed like the Browns, after getting that 1-point lead, would have a chance to just have maybe their marquee win of the entire, definitely their marquee win of the entire season. No, Trace McSorley, who had been out there, looked like he injured his knee pretty bad, non-contact issue. Lamar Jackson takes off his Superman, business suit, comes out of the locker room, goes out, 4th and 5, hits Marquise Brown for a 44-yard score, rolling out to his right after the defenders had come up. Some might argue there's an illegal pick thrown in there as well, but clearly people were worried about Lamar taking off on a scramble, and Marquise was able to get behind him and go score, but not so fast, my friend, as mid-2000s video game Lee Corso would say. Browns go right back down the field, 4 plays, 75 yards. Baker just making one quick strike after another against a defense that by this point, didn't have Jimmy Smith. They had another cornerback get hurt. Marcus Peters was playing banged up. Whatever. Credit to Baker for moving the offense all game long, not taking away anything from him, but just 47 seconds for a touchdown. Then Lamar takes him right back downfield for the 55-yard game-winning kick from Justin Tucker. So, again, absolutely wild game, and just a great job by everyone around. This game could have easily gone to Baker and company. Could have easily gone to Lamar, and, it was a situation where I was surprised to see Baker really keep them in this as much, and kind of going more into the specific players in this one. Like, Baker had some great throws. 37 yards to Donovan Peoples-Jones on a deep flag route early on. His throw at the end of the first half on a Hail Mary, which no one had a chance to catch, but 70 yards out the back of the end zone. This dude has a bazooka for a right arm. We saw that on several occasions in this one. So not perfect, 28 for 47. He threw a pick that ended up being, easy 1-yard touchdown, was nearly a pick six that, just pretty much tried to throw it past the guy in the flat and didn't get there. So certainly had some issues, but again, mentioned nice touchdowns to Higgins. He ran one in and marched him back down the field at the end. Baker Mayfield gave the Browns every chance to win in this one. And, he's getting to the point where he's, getting more volume than we were at least seeing in the past. I really think those 3 games they had in Cleveland, I believe in weeks like 9 through 11 or something like that. It was one after another of just brutal weather just every single week. Texans, Raiders, and there was one more of those. And I think maybe that's flawed some of what we've seen here. And hey, they did have 48 passes and 28 rush attempts. Usually we'll see Chubb and even Kareem Hunt get closer to 20. So I think it was more of an issue with them coming back, negative game script. But either way, this was by far Baker's toughest opponent that he had a really good game against. I mean, before it was the Bengals, the Jaguars, and the Titans, all of which are pretty awful secondaries. Ravens make life tough on everybody with the amount of blitzes and stuff they can send out of QBs. So truly credit to Baker, his third straight game that I think everyone has to call good no matter what. And the Browns, I mean, they're still sitting at 9-4. So anytime we got Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt out there able to make their things, just on a weekly basis on the ground. Chubb had 82 yards and 2 scores. And this one, Hunt had 33 yards and a touchdown. And then also 77 yards and a receiving touchdown. I mean, just truly 2 top 10 real life backs that have coincided as 2 top 10 fantasy backs for many weeks this year. So Chubb's obviously still going to be the one in the fantasy playoffs we feel the best about. But Kareem Hunt certainly going to be in that top 24 in week 15 and beyond. Donovan Peoples-Jones, he looks good out there. Like they're using him as their kind of field stretching option. Just with OBJ out of the picture, he has slid now into 3 wide receiver sets alongside Rashard Higgins and Jarvis Landry. But I know he was someone that didn't exactly get a lot of love coming out of the class and was a 6th-round pick. But one week after another, where we see this dude making some pretty big plays out there. So he had 74 yards more than Higgins, who was at 68. Landry 52. I mean, look, the Browns, Baker, air raid quarterback. He's down to kind of spread it around. But I have been impressed with some of just the routes, especially last week. I mean, Peoples-Jones dropped a really easy touchdown and then hit a double move for a long score that was just absolutely filthy. So credit to him for making some big plays throughout the season with his opportunities. Yeah, I mentioned Kareem Hunt's big game. That pretty much does it for the Browns. Oh, David Njoku probably should have had a touchdown. He had a decent enough game, 3 catches, 45 yards, but Baker did have a beautiful lob into the end zone that hit his hands a little high, but you're getting paid millions of dollars to play football. You would like them to make the catch when it hits you in the hand. So again, great game from Baker Mayfield and company. You score 42 points, you expect to win the football game. This was not on Baker. You could say it was on the Browns defense because you give up 47 points. How are you going to expect to win all that often? So they just could not stop the run. And guess what? I mean, we saw the Cowboys last week and pretty much any defense that faced the Ravens in 2019. Very hard rushing offense to stop when things were going right. And we just almost didn't even see Lamar look to throw for large portions of this game. He ended up going 11 for 17, only 163 yards and a touchdown. Again, he made the big plays. Marquise Brown, long one. He had another crazy play to Mark Andrews for 39 yards where he freaking dodged like 3 defenders in the pocket, rolled out and was able to hit him down the field. But nothing was easy when they were just throwing from the pocket. It wasn't all on Lamar. Marquise Brown dropped, I believe, 3 passes before he ended up having the 44-yard score at the end to take the lead almost once and for all. But, it was another game where we just did not see any consistent rhyme or reason in this passing game. And look, Mark Andrews, we all know he's a great tight end, but could we please get Lamar Jackson a legit number 1 wide receiver? We've seen Baker get OBJ, whether that's worked out or not. They at least tried to make that investment. Obviously, Stephon Diggs has made Josh Allen look like a brand new quarterback. And, Kyler Murray getting DeAndre Hopkins. Like most of these young quarterbacks have seen their team really try and make an investment to get them some higher end talent at wide receiver. I realize the Ravens drafted Hollywood Brown to be that guy, but I think it's pretty clear at this point he's going to be better off as, a field stretching wide receiver 2. Would love to see Baltimore get Lamar a true wide receiver 1 before we were too harsh about his ability as a passer. But obviously, it's still, we have a ways to go before this Ravens passing game. Anything resembling, a consistent high-end unit. But this rushing attack, Lamar, 124 yards, 2 scores and 9 carries. J.K. Dobbins had 53 yards in a score on 13 carries. Even Gus Edwards, 49 yards and 2 touchdowns. So even though, we're always talking on the old Twitter sphere about how great J.K. Dobbins is, and he really is awesome. You look at yards after contact, and just his jump cutting abilities, like early mid 2000s. I guess it was mid 2000s, Shady-esque, and just some of the things he used to do with the Eagles. I've always loved that part about Dobbins. But yeah, I mean, it was still a situation where it was Dobbins and Edwards. But luckily, everybody, we did see Mark Ingram take a complete backseat because Dobbins, unofficial snap stats, but 30 total snaps. Gus Edwards had 15, Justice Hill 5, Mark Ingram 1. So as long as this stays a 2 RB backfield, which it looks like it is at this point, yeah, we can actually fire up J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards as legit low-end RB2s with the way this Ravens offense is now finally starting to pick up and score some points. So, we kind of knew this ending stretch was going to be fine for Lamar. It wasn't necessarily this game that we were feeling too good about, but we look at week 15 against the Jacksonville Jaguars for the Ravens. I mean, Lamar and company, that we putting up all sorts of points in that one. So Browns are also a team where we're looking at their end of the season schedule, and they can finish pretty hot as well. They have the Giants next week, which I understand, underrated defense, or I guess they're properly rated at this point, but solid defense. But week 16, we got the New York Football Jets at, in New York, but it doesn't matter. In my opinion, Browns should be able to smash in that one. Any other notes here? Hope Trace McSorley is okay with that knee issue. And only other thing, Mark Andrews, oh man, sheesh alert there. He had a potential 48-yard touchdown down the seam that Lamar just sailed on him. We've seen Lamar miss some of these balls throughout the year, but this one was particularly bad. I mean, Willie Snead had a chance to play before to catch one down the seam, but that was a little bit tighter coverage. The miss to Andrews was pretty brutal. So again, game of the year to this point, and credit to both the Browns and the Ravens for supplying that one and making it one hell of a Monday night. All right, I want to go over some quick waiver wire thoughts. Make sure you check out PFF.com this week, and there'll be more specific waiver wire just action. And then also my QB ranks article goes up on Tuesday, my running back article Wednesday, wide receiver cornerback on Thursday. So you can pretty much see all my thoughts on individual players in those. But without further ado, let's check out some waiver wire goodness. First situation to monitor is the Miami Dolphins, because there are just so many injuries going on everywhere. And I really thought Tua, even before this week, I mean, we all know he played great against the Chiefs, keeping them in that game. But last week was his best game of the season. And, even 2 weeks ago was his best game of the season at that point. And then against the Chiefs, obviously that's now his best game. But, in that matchup, look at the people that were surrounding him at this point. I mean, they were down their number 4 running back with Myles Gaskin, Matt Breida, and Salvin Ahmed on the, if not injured reserve list, at least inactive. We lost Devontae Parker, Jakeem Grant, and Mike Gesicki midway through the game. And they were starting 3 rookies across the offensive line to begin with. Number 2 wide receiver Preston Williams has been out since week 9. I mean, the Dolphins never really had anyone's idea of a super talented skill position corps to begin with, and now the way they're at, I mean, it's hardly a fantasy friendly environment for Tua. So that's kind of my main point here with these Dolphins. I don't want to overreact to what we saw in that Chiefs game and comeback mode. It was great. Tua made some awesome plays, but one of those touchdowns down the seam probably should have been intercepted. And we do have, a lot more evidence this year that when the Dolphins are able to get up and play with the lead, they don't want to put Tua in a position to, throw the ball too often. And as great as he is as a rusher, or just not as great, he's not Jalen Hurts or anything like that, but as much as he can do, athletically sometimes, he's only had 2 games where he's really given us anything of a fantasy friendly rushing floor. So he's really content to throw first, as he should be. He's a quarterback, but in Fantasyland, we do want guys that are going to, just be taking off and running a little bit more. So really low game total, just 41.5. Look, Tua dealing with the top 3 drop rate. All of his weapons are hurt. Just not a situation I'm looking to actively get behind as a streamer. And then with these running backs, I mean, DeAndre Washington, look, he played 39 snaps last week, but Patrick Laird was right there at, 42 in his own right. So I think it was more because of the negative game script, but it's not like DeAndre Washington just owns this backfield. He's losing plenty of work to Patrick Laird, and we got, a backup running back Malcolm Perry playing a bunch of snaps just out wide. We got Lynn Bowden, who is eligible on Yahoo and ESPN as both a wide receiver and RB, I believe. We got him playing just a few running back snaps, mostly wide receiver stuff, but they have a lot of guys around the formation. They're comfortable catching the ball and running the ball, and I just feel like, Washington, again, they're number 4 back at this point. It just wouldn't be shocking if they try to make some switch up next week and just moving on, because, again, when we're talking about number 4 running back, things are hardly cemented. So if nothing changes, if no one gets healthy before this Patriots game, we just saw Cam Akers go off against them. I'd be willing to treat, Washington as, this upside RB3. But again, let's just try to avoid this game. I don't think it's going to be very fantasy friendly at all. And, just Lynn Bowden, DeAndre Washington, Tua, these aren't the guys we want to be starting with the fantasy playoffs on the line, people. So if you got to do it, I do think Bowden, coming out of the slot, Patriots have allowed the 10th most yards per attempt, 7th highest explosive pass play rate, 2 targets lined up in the slot. I get it. Bowden, Washington, they're not the worst dart throws, but again, let's just not expect too much out of this Dolphins offense in its current state. One offense we can feel a little bit better about is the Houston Texans, as long as Deshaun Watson continues to have a pulse, because, look, we have Chad Hansen, 5 catches, 101 yards, and then 7 catches, 56 yards with 7 targets per game over the past 2 weeks. Keke Coutee had 8 catches for 141 yards 2 weeks ago, 3 catches for 24 yards and a score on 12 total targets. So, I mean, look, both these guys have been on top of the depth chart. You've got Stephen Mitchell, something named Stephen Mitchell out there running some routes as well, but it's Hansen and Coutee at the top of Deshaun Watson's pecking order, and I realize that Week 15 versus the Colts isn't amazing, but it's a winnable matchup. These are guys that you can look at as, maybe just boom or bust or upside wide receiver 3s. The real time to shine those Week 16 versus the Bengals, and that's the one point I want to make here, because, again, we're only dealing with 2 weeks now. We got to live in the moment and not worry about, the super long term, obviously, because the long term is now literally 2 weeks for redraft leagues. So look at Week 16, people, at the 3 defenses we want to target: Bengals, Jaguars, and Jets. Texans play the Bengals, Bears play the Jaguars, Browns play the Jets. So, Chudy, if you have extra room on the fantasy football bench, Keke Coutee and Chad Hansen, Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet, Rashard Higgins, even Donovan Peoples-Jones, and if Hooper stays out, David Njoku, these are all super viable Week 16 guys that I'm going to be talking about on the show next week. So if you want to get ahead of that, again, we got the Texans playing the Bengals, Bears playing Jaguars, Browns playing the Jets. If you're going to have to, fire up someone in a flex that you're not feeling good about, might as well try to target one of the 3 worst defenses in the league. Broncos wide receivers Tim Patrick and KJ Hamler also kind of fall into this group. I mean, they got the Bills this week, Chargers next week. They're reasonable enough matchups. Tim Patrick especially. I mean, he has 100 yards and/or a touchdown. 7 of his last 9 games with a non-practice squad QB at non-practice squad wide receiver at QB. So we're not counting any stats from that one atrocity that we saw against the Saints a few weeks ago. But also credit to KJ Hamler. I mean, he wasn't creating too many big plays kind of as he's been starting throughout the year. But last week, 2 catches, 2 touchdowns. Jerry Jeudy just hasn't been featured ahead of these guys. He's out there, but really any of these guys, I mean, Drew Lock, the guy loves throwing downfield, top 5 quarterback in big time throw rate, bottom 3 quarterback in turnover worthy play rate. So we see a lot of good and bad. At a minimum, these guys have a higher ceiling than if we had a less aggressive quarterback under center. Just 2 more situations to talk about. Irv Smith, I think this is a little bit of a trap play. He had 4 catches for 63 yards and a touchdown last week. He ran routes on just 7 of 49 of Kirk Cousins dropbacks. So that's rough. So if Kyle Rudolph stays sidelined with his foot injury, I think Irv Smith can be, a touchdown-dependent tight end too. He's very talented, but, we even heard rumors before the game that he was going to play limited snaps. That was the case, and again, it's not even a situation where, he's out there for a ton of the routes. They're just only using him in passing situations. Again, only 17 of 49 dropbacks. That's going to be rough. So if he's out there and we get some assurance, maybe he practices in full all throughout this week, okay, then we can get him in that top 15. But otherwise, I would try to find another option. Finally, I want to talk about Jalen Hurts. And hey, we said on this podcast last week, get Jalen Hurts for Week 15 against the Cardinals and for Week 16 against the Cowboys. So, on me for not, realizing that just he was going to have 18 freaking carries in that last game. I just thought the Saints, being the number 1 defense against running backs would probably be a rough matchup for a quarterback that we're essentially would be playing as a running back. But either way, hopefully he picked up Hurts because we can truly treat him as a top 10 fantasy football quarterback in Week 15 and 16. PFF's own Seth Galin has an awesome breakdown on PFF.com you should check out about Jalen Hurts' first start. But Seth's main 3 takeaways were that 1, Eagles supporting cast on offense and defense put forward their best game of the year. 2, Hurts didn't make much happen as a passer. Still has a lot to prove in that department. 3, Hurts brought some newfound rushing goodness to the equation and picked up first down after first down on scrambles really all throughout this game. 106 rushing yards, tied for the second highest mark of a QB of the season by a QB. And he also had 18 rush attempts. That's the highest mark by a QB all season. So only 4 of his 18 rushes were on scrambles. I mean, again, I mentioned before, he kept picking up the first downs on the scrambles. But, last year, Gardner Minshew was top 5 in rushing yards, and a real easy way to see that I was going to regress a little bit was because all of it was on scrambles. So when we see someone like Hurts, like Lamar, like Kyler, that actually get a good chunk of design rush attempts as well, we know that floor is going to be even better. So the Cardinals have allowed the 5th most rushing yards per game to opposing QBs. Start Jalen Hurts with confidence, even if we still need to find out what he has as a passer. His rushing upside is already fantasy QB1 worthy, people. So it doesn't necessarily reflect real life as much as we might want fantasy to sometimes, but it does not matter in this case. Start Jalen Hurts with confidence against the Cardinals and Cowboys alike. That's going to do it, everybody. Thank you as always for tuning in to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. Got game-by-game breakdown coming on the Wednesday edition of the pod, and then we'll have a new guest, Peter Overset, on Thursday. 10 questions with him. Friday, going to be breaking down the Thursday night game and going over some injuries to watch ahead of the weekend. Then we'll be right back here Monday breaking down the games again. So thank you as always for tuning in. I'm Ian Hartitz, and until next time, take care, everybody.
Thanks for watching the PFF YouTube channel. And if you want to subscribe, all you have to do is push the button. Don't forget everything you get. A little fantasy, push the button. A little green line for the gambling aspects of the game, push the button. College football, push the button. The YouTube channel from PFF.